Welcome back to The Deciders. Young Americans and members of the LGBTQ community have become a force to be reckoned with. And coming up, they'll tell us how they'll vote. But first, if the 2020 election is close, Asian Americans, making up 5% of the electorate, could have an important voice in who wins this time around. Elaine Quijano checks out the power of their voices.
In the final rush to reach voters,
Hello, Carson City.
there's a battle for Nevada.
Hello, Las Vegas.
And a key group here, more than 200,000 eligible voters who trace their roots to Asia or the Pacific Islands.
You see a lot of injustices. You see a lot of inequality.
Grace Vergara Mactao grew up in the Philippines, where 1 in 5 live in poverty. Inequality that sparked her activism. Today, she's mobilizing Filipino Americans in Nevada for Joe Biden. She hosts a weekly phone bank with her union, whose members, like healthcare workers nationwide, are on the front lines of the pandemic.
The lack of attention to protect the workers so they can serve our community was disturbing. And yes, our members are getting sick.
She says she also sees a link from the White House.
China virus, the China plague. Kung flu, I can name.
To the harassment faced by some Asian Americans.
I am afraid for my son. I feel like people are given a permission to be racist towards somebody because of the color of their skin, because the shape of their eyes. Donald Trump has contributed to that in a great deal.
90% of it is white noise. So things that get my ears to stand up are definitely the economy.
2,500 miles away in East Brunswick, New Jersey, Dar Kona voted Libertarian in 2016. But now he says business is booming.
I actually made the decision in June to quit my job, working for a construction company, and start my own.
In the middle of a pandemic?
In the middle of a pandemic. And it was the right time, and it was a great time to do it, because I had a tremendous amount of faith in the economy.
Kona is Indian American and one of 11 million Asian American eligible voters. A majority say they plan to vote for Biden.
Support of your community, the AAPI community, has been incredible.
I am voting for President Trump. I think he's the best candidate.
I'm not voting for President Trump this year. I just don't think he has the character that represents the Asian values that I had growing up, like respect and concern for families. Just his policy on immigration would make it even harder for like our parents and grandparents to have come over.
Rich and Lena Eng's families immigrated from China and Taiwan. They live in New Berlin, Wisconsin. They're evangelical Christians and lifelong Republicans.
There are positives that President Trump has done. For example, reaching out to President Tsai when she won the election in Taiwan. I mean, that was tremendous. Challenging the Chinese Communist Party on just the way that they've taken advantage of the intellectual property. But I don't think that his tactics were right.
It's absolutely wrong.
For Dar Kona, it's a matter of trust. Joe Biden's evasiveness on expanding the Supreme Court gives Kona pause.
He shouldn't have had an issue answering that question. It's a fundamental answer of 3 branches of government. I come from a country, the politicians and the government have tremendous amount of control. The beauty of what we have here in America is we have a great checks and balance system.
So let me just ask you one more question about Joe Biden. You know, he chose as his running mate Senator Kamala Harris. She is the first Black and the first Indian American woman to be nominated for vice president. Did that enter into your decision-making process at all about who you would support?
No. Race actually has no play for me in politics whatsoever. It's nice to see minorities being elevated. I think we need to see more of that. But I think what we need to see more of is merit-based. Who is the viable candidate?
For the Engs, faith informs their politics.
You started a class to talk about faith and politics with other members of your church. Why did you do that?
Because we were concerned about just the vitriol and the contempt that people had for each other, even within the Christian community. We're supposed to be a community that is defined by, above all else, love.
Asian Americans are the fastest growing racial group in the U.S. electorate. Their backgrounds and ideology may vary, but across the country, they're making their voices heard.
I hope that the Asians will get out and vote because we can make a difference in our vote.
People are dying. And I think it is our opportunity now to make a change. And it is our opportunity to turn around our country.
Coming up, LGBTQ voters take to the streets and the polls.